my name is Stephanie. Welcome to my channel, Edible Thoughts Makes. This channel is where I share with you my works in progress, finished projects, things I'm cooking up, books I'm reading, funny things the kids say. My hope is that as you watch this episode and the previous episodes that you find some inspiration along the way. Today I have lots and lots of finished projects to share with you, several works in progress and several projects that I am excited to cast on. As you know, there is a global pandemic going on currently. COVID-19 is everywhere. It's in the news. It is been the topic of conversation here in our household for probably every day for the last 3 months. And it is stressful, and the kids are feeling it for sure. They're starting to get nightmares, and my husband and I were talking about maybe it's not that we want to shut off the news or just like disregard what's going on in the world, but we need to set boundaries and limit our discussion on this topic to not be 24/7, basically. We will continue to keep ourselves updated and do what we can to help one another within our family and our outside family and our community, but to constantly be talking about the numbers and what's going on is proving to be this constant like stress cloud enveloping everybody, and it is just not healthy. And we all know it is very important to stay healthy. I am a firm believer in keeping yourself healthy mentally, spiritually, to keep yourself healthy physically. So it's not just about going out and exercising or staying in and exercising or going for walks if you are in a location where you are allowed to be walking around outside. But it is also taking care of yourself in many other ways. I do want to share with you some ideas I have on self-care and in this time of social distancing and making sure you keep yourself and your neighbor safe. And I don't just mean like your neighbor, like the direct neighbor right next to you, but like neighbor in a greater sense in community. Because we do all need to take care of each other and take care of ourselves to flatten the curve. And this doesn't go just for this global pandemic right now. Like, this applies to everything and to how we should be taking care of each other all the time. Like, social distancing isn't something that we should necessarily be practicing all the time, but more along the lines of being aware of the needs, like your own needs, your family's needs, but also the needs of others, and how can you do something to help somebody else out. So some of these ideas I have are like pertain to like if you have little kids in your household, but also with technology these days we can often video call somebody, and so some of these ideas you can do with others through FaceTime or Skype or Google Hangout or whatever way you decide to use to communicate with others. Or I've seen a lot of footage of people like visiting elderly in senior homes where you can't go in, but some people have windows, so you can still kind of communicate through the windows. So some of these ideas might work for that. So the idea is to brighten someone else's day and help each other out through these times of social distancing. So some of the things might just be for yourself, like just simply closing your eyes, taking some deep breaths, and being very intentional about setting aside time for that every day. Maybe you need to set an alarm, so 3 times a day you do this. Maybe you want to do it a little more organically, where you just find yourself sitting down for a few seconds, and maybe that's the time that you do it. So just close your eyes and take those deep breaths in through your nose and release out through your mouth, and just being aware of your breath and being aware of your body. Drinking water. We need to remember to drink water. I'm not going to tell you like how many glasses or your volume per day or anything like that. Just drink water if you can. Drink liquids. Stretching. Like, I feel like sometimes we're sitting there for so long we can get really stiff. So simply just stretching can be something that's kind of nice to do. The YouTube is a great resource for you to search for different exercises people can do at home or stretching exercises. There's things for kids, there's things for older people. There's a lot of resources there. Listening to music, you can do some of those things while you're doing some of the other things I mentioned. But also, if you have kids at home that are getting restless and you may or may not have the option of going outside or just choose not to at the time, dance parties are a great way to get those wiggles out. You can make a playlist, you can search on Spotify for kids dance party, and that can be a fun way to get your wiggles out. I know we've done some cleaning up around here, so if you have little kids, you might know they really like to dump things out but not always put things back. So we've done some things where we'll play like a song, and let's say the song's like 3 minutes or something, and then in that time we count how many items we can pick up and put away. So sometimes maybe it's 100, sometimes maybe it's 50 or whatever it is, but it's kind of a fun way to both clean up the house and get your wiggles out, and it's fun for everybody because there's music. And then if you have kids that maybe fight over what song they have, then you can say, okay, well, maybe one person gets to pick the morning song, one person picks the afternoon song, and, well, you'll make it work. Another thing to do is maybe you have always wanted to just sit down and draw or paint. You don't need a lot of different supplies. If you have a pen, if you have a pencil, find a scrap piece of paper, you can sit down and draw. Like, don't know what to draw, maybe stack up some random items together and draw a still life. Or maybe draw off whatever you want from your head, or if you have a window view, draw off whatever you see outside. Just doodle or do something. Like, set time to do that for yourself. You don't have to be a great artist. It doesn't really matter. Just, if you want to, do it. Play-Doh is another great way. If you have salt and flour at home, you can make Play-Doh. I'll link to the recipe that I use down in the show notes or description box below. I find it very therapeutic to be sitting there rolling warm dough. It's great, and the kids like to play with it too. And if you have essential oils and you like that kind of stuff, you can drop a little bit in there, and then it smells really nice. But yeah, oh, and I think you need cream of tartar in there. There's like a little bit of that. I think that helps stabilize it so it doesn't go bad as quick. But the high amount of salt in there also does that. So you can add food coloring if you want to make different colors, or just use it as natural color. And then when it dries, the kids can also paint it if they want, so it can be like a multiple day activity. Let's see, what else do I have in here? Journaling. So if you're into journaling, like, I like to write things out. So I have this that I use. I am not a daily journaler. I used to be, I guess, as a kid, or when we went on trips and stuff. You write in your date, and then there's just 4 prompts. What made me happy today, if I learned something today, what I'm grateful for, and what I'm going to do tomorrow. So it's really nice to have those simple prompts. And then there's a blank space here for you to write, draw, put in a picture or stickers or whatever. So I really like this, but you don't have to have any sort of specific journal. You can pull out a notebook. Some people like to do things on their phones, and so there's, I'm sure, a lot of different apps for that, but the less screen time I have, the better, so I prefer pencil and paper. So those are some of my ideas. Oh yes, some other ones are, if you go onto YouTube and search Minute to Win It, it's a very popular game, and oftentimes it uses a lot of different household items, and you could probably substitute some of them as well. But that would be a fun thing to play if you have kids at home too, or another adult, or maybe you are going to FaceTime somebody and you both look up that game, and then you guys can play the game through video. But yeah, lots of games and options that you can play either with the people that are in the home with you, or with other people through the internet, or through gets kind of loud in the house, we'll play charades because you can't talk. And then for my younger daughter who isn't reading yet, we'll draw pictures on there, and it doesn't even matter if she really understands what the picture is, because then she can just come up with whatever it is in her head that she wants to act out. But that's another way that you can play games that are active and fun, and we just use scrap pieces of paper and write or draw the item on there and then throw them into a bucket or a cup or whatever, and then just draw out of that. So there are some of my ideas for self-care and social distancing. If you have additional ideas or things that you have tried, share them in the comments below, and maybe it can help somebody else feel inspired to do the same. So with that, let's see, I would love to share with you some of my finished projects as of late. Alright, this is the modified Pure Joy shawl I made for my daughter. This is using DK weight yarn. It is still a crescent shape, but just not as deep and not as long. So I modified it by, I think, not casting on as many and then shortening the wedges. And then this little strip of coral in there is leftovers from my Ripple crop top worsted. This lavender is left over from my Alejandra shawl, and I really like how it turned out. She loves it as well, and I might have to borrow it sometimes. You can see here. I added the picot edging on this one as well, just like I did on mine. But I really like how it turned out. She likes to wear it over her shoulders and then crossed in the front and tied in the back, and it covers her torso pretty well, so wearing it that way is really comfortable for her and doesn't fall off. So I love this one. This one turned out really nicely. Next one I want to share with you is my finished Gatsby shawl by Dawn, and I absolutely love it. Okay, so it uses a size 5 or 3.75 millimeter needle and fingering weight yarn. The yarn I use is by Sam at Lavender Loom Yarn Co., and it's called Cedar Leaf. It is one of her BFL 150 skeins, so it comes in 150 grams instead of 100, and it's the blue-faced Leicester. And I ended up using 530 yards. So what's really nice is that it's all one skein. So this pattern was written for, I think, 600 or less maybe yards. But you're not like joining extra yarn, and it's all from one skein. I love garter because I don't have to think so hard compared to lace. And this bottom edging is really fun. There's this chevron motif with knitted bobbles. I'm a big fan of those knitted bobbles. You don't get like a funny hole on the side. They just look very polished and fun. And I really like how this colorway knit up. So it sits very nicely. I really like it. So you can either let your ends hang down like that, you can tuck them in if you want, but I feel like it sits very nicely. And I like this I-cord bind off, and I did carefully block it so that you would have the peaks where the bobbles are. So it fits so nice. I highly recommend this pattern. I wouldn't mind knitting several other ones, but yes, I love it. I highly recommend it. Oh, before I forget, so my tip for this one though is these sections with the chevron and the bobbles, put a marker between each repeat. That way if you get to the end and you're like, I have too many stitches or I have too few stitches than what it says in the pattern, you can count back and see if you have the right number of stitches between each repeat to find your mistakes easier. Otherwise, if you don't put them in, I feel like it's much more challenging to find out where your mistakes were. So that's my biggest tip. I always put a marker to mark the front of the shawl, because if it's garter, the front and the back look similar. So until you would have gotten to the repeat section, you wouldn't, well, I guess you could tell where the front is because of this center spine, but Progress Keeper would be more obvious. All right, a quick and fun pattern by Cozy Up Knits are Joe's Perfect Slipper Socks. It uses worsted weight yarn, or you could do fingering held double if that's something you want to do, or use up yarn for that. I used Little Lion Head Knits worsted weight, and this pink is so cute. They're super soft and super cozy. Now I messed up a little bit on the first one because the way they had you divide up your stitches in Magic Loop before you start decreasing wasn't the same way that I divide up when I'm normally making socks, so then I couldn't wrap my head around where the decreases were supposed to go, and I ended up with too many decreases. So then I think I increased a little bit on the cuff, so then I made my cuff longer. There isn't really supposed to be a cuff, but I made a little bit of one, and then I made these little eyelet yarn overs here, which are kind of fun, and then it kind of gives this like ruffled edging. And then I told my daughter that if she wants to, she can thread like a ribbon through it, and you can tie a little bow in the front if she feels like maybe the top is too big, because she said she ended up telling me that she liked the one that I messed up on the fit of it better because she has really skinny ankles. So I think because I kept decreasing, like that part hugs her ankles better than the other one does. So anyway, I might try the ribbon thing through the eyelets and then see how she likes that fit. But otherwise, she loves them. You can tell they've been worn. They're fuzzing. She likes to wear them at night before she goes to bed when we're reading stories. But it's a very quick knit. It's really cute. I love the textured front. And the sizing, let's see, 5 sizes. So anywhere from child through adult. So that's a fun pattern that I recommend. All right, so these socks, I didn't follow a specific pattern. I did knit them toe up. And I used Patton's Croy socks in the gray-brown marl self-striping. Now because I knit these in US 2 or 2.75 millimeter, and I cast on, I believe, 48. I did a 48 stitch circumference. My striping looks a little more like color blocking. So if you have more stitches in the round, then your stripes will be narrower. If you have less stitches in the round, your stripes will be wider. So mine look a little more like color blocking with these little bits of striping in between versus bigger stripes. But I love it. They're really fun. So I did toe up using the old Turkish cast on. I did a Flegel heel after I think 50 rounds in the foot, and then I did a Flegel heel, and then I did a little bit in the leg. I made 20 rounds for the leg, and then 15 rounds in a 2x2 cuff, and then Jenny's surprisingly stretchy bind off for the top. Second pair of finished socks are a pattern that I made up and I'm calling Fields of Flowers. So this will be the Crocus edition based on the color. I love how these turned out. I used Woolberry Fiber Co., a mini that's like a very light purple, light lavender for this top part, and then I just gradually narrowed these stripes and then added in the main color, which is Pop Rocks by the Kinetic Knitter. And then I did an Eye of Partridge heel, and then I did a rounded toe using Knit Picks Hawthorn in the colorway Compass. So I really love how these turned out. So these are more like the length I've been knitting most of my socks, and they're super comfortable. I knit these on US 1 or 2.25 millimeter needles. Love how these turned out. Super fun. Very springy. Okay, I think that is it for my finished projects. So on to works in progress. Since we're on socks, let's just keep going with socks. I made this project bag recently to remind me that spring is coming. And this one I lined the inside with felt, like the interior, not the interior lining, but like the interior, where the interfacing would typically go. But I was really looking for my quilter's like batting, but I couldn't find any, so then I used felt. And it stands up really well. It's probably a little bit stiffer than I intended it to be, but I like how kind of squishy and solid it is. So in this one are my vanilla latte socks, and I used yarn by Adria of Onyx Fiber Socks in her Mom's Vanilla Coffee as my main color. And it is so much fun. The micro striping I am in love with. And then for my contrast I used Sophia, which I love this pink. It's like a muted pale pink with tan undertones. It is right up my alley. So here is one finished sock. So I did a 2x2 rib cuff, and there's this pattern throughout. I did an eye of partridge heel in the contrast, and then I did this rounded toe in the contrast color as well. I love this striping. I wasn't quite sure what was going to happen here, since you know you have so many more stitches on the needles, and then as you decrease down the stripes come back, but it's kind of fun. I'm interested to see how the second sock will look. I am this far on my second sock. This is knit cuff down. But yes, I love these browns, and I love how they're interacting with this pink. Really, really fun. And I did knit those ones shorter than my other socks, so these will be perfect for spring as well. Here you can see the length difference on these. So, I mean, imagine that. Knitting a shorter leg makes a faster sock. So maybe as we get into spring and summer and I'm knitting shorter socks, that they will just come off the needles quicker because they will be shorter. We shall see. So Joanna of Stitching the High Notes has a make-along going on right now. The hashtag is, I'll put it up here, STHN Beatrix Potter MAL. So you can make anything that is inspired by Beatrix Potter. So I'm casting on these socks, the Garden Sprinkles by Anne of Little Skein Anne. And I just started. I made this project bag to go with this, and I love this fabric. I used a Hatchmark brown fabric for the drawstring channel and a green gingham for the inside lining, and I just love it. So my yarn is by Colleen at Little Lionhead Knits, which is named after a bunny or bunnies. I don't remember how many bunnies she has, but little lionheads are a type of bunny. So I thought that was appropriate. And then this yarn, the colorway is Garden Gnome. It's this mint green with specks of blue and orange, and it is really fun. I decided to do a little bit of a of contrast in the cuff. So I'm using this like really pale pink color here, and then I'm knitting these up on double pointed needles just to kind of change up my hand position. I often knit my socks in magic loop, but I feel like sometimes it can get a little tight, and so with so much knitting, I feel like it's good to change up my hand position. So maybe I have like a set of socks on 9-inch circulars, and then I have ones on 32-inch magic loop, and then I have ones on double pointed needles. So these ones are on double pointed needles. I just got these Knit Pro Zings and I love them. The sizes come in different colors, so it's easier to tell them apart. The sizing is also written on them, but I don't know if they're etched in or just printed on, because if they're just printed on, then eventually it wears off, but if they're etched in, like the Chagu needles have them etched in, then it won't come off. But anyway, they're in different colors, which makes it really nice to be able to see what size you might have. But look how the contrast is on that. Isn't that fun? I don't know if it'll show up there. So I am knitting the Garden Sprinkles pattern, which has a very light texture on it. I don't know if you'll be able to see it. It's a free pattern on Ravelry. Comes in 3 sizes. It is knit top down, and I'm really excited about it. So if you are looking for a sock pattern, that one might be a fun one for you to try. Oh, and the Vanilla Latte sock pattern is also free on Ravelry, so you can look up those as well. Okay, so I haven't knit a sweater, I feel like, in a pretty long time. I've been really into socks lately. I feel like they're quicker, but Andra Mowry is hosting a sweater knit along right now, and I decided to cast on her latest pattern called the Throwover, and it is knit using worsted weight yarn, which is a weight that I prefer for sweaters, worsted weight, DK weight, and it's color work, so I like color work. It's knit top down in the round. I like top down in the round. So basically it was kind of like a no-brainer that this is the one I needed. So let me show you where I'm at. I have split for the sleeves. Dun, 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 dun. Isn't that beautiful? Oh, I love it. So I have this dusty purple as the main color, a tonal peachy color here, this yellow with speckles, and this tonal purple fuchsia as my 4th color. A progress keeper here on the front. It's a bronze leaf with, I think it's honey opal, and that's by Maria of Woolen Forest. And on the back here, this progress keeper I have here is an old earring I converted to a progress keeper of mine. And so yes, I am really excited about this. It's going to block out so nice. There are some areas where you are carrying 3 strands instead of just 2 strands. I found it fine. I actually did a project with 3 strands over a year ago, I think, before I even really got into more color work. And what I mean to tell you by that is, even as a beginner, I don't think that is that challenging. I think you can make it work. So yes, I'm really excited about how this is going. Let's see here. Tell you a little bit about it. There's the pattern. There are 9 sizes. Smallest size is finished 34-inch circumference. Largest size is 66-inch finished circumference. I am knitting the smallest size. Sweater is intended to be worn with approximately 2 to 6 inches of positive ease. So I'm knitting the smallest size, which will give me about 3 inches of positive ease. You'll pick out 4 colors in worsted weight, and ribbing is recommended to use US 6 or 4 millimeter needles, and the main fabric is US 8 or 5 millimeter. I did not do a gauge swatch, and I used the needles that it calls for. I figured that if it was a little smaller or a little bigger, it wasn't going to be that big of a deal for me. Gauge is 16.25 stitches and 22 rounds in for 4 inches, measured over stockinette stitch, knit in the round on the larger needle after blocking. Another reason I didn't swatch is because I will likely be running short of my main color, and I just need every inch of it. So depending on how far I get on the main color will determine how short or the body is and the sleeves. I haven't decided if it's going to be running short, if I'm going to make it more cropped length, or if I'm just going to make the sleeve shorter. We will see how that goes. My 2 purples here are pretty different. This one's really light and a lot more solid. This one's a little darker and a little more variant. So I am using the helical knitting technique to alternate my skeins. And what that does is you don't end up with like a twist on the inside of your sweater, because as you get to the other one, like two stitches before, you will slip those 3 onto your right hand needle and then pick up your yarn and then continue knitting with the other skein of yarn. There are lots of tutorials on YouTube. I have linked to one on my project page, which will be linked down below if you are interested in looking up helical knitting. Get these back in here without it. So I'm done with my contrast colors unless I decide to use them to lengthen any portion of the sweater, like if I am running out and I need to add in additional length. I just started another Cozy Up Knits pattern. This one is called the Katie's Shawl, and it is currently being offered free on Ravelry to download. I believe it's until the end of March, but you'll have to double check their Instagram or their latest YouTube episode to double check on the date. What I like about it is that it's a triangular garter shawl with these fun eyeball stitch motif. So it's my kind of shawl, not lace knitting. A little bit of interesting. It says you can use up mini skeins if you want to. You can knit the whole thing in just 2 colors, or you can knit the whole thing in multiple colors. I am knitting mine mostly in 2 colors, unless I run out of one of my contrast colors, and in which case then I will be adding in more colors. This is my main color. Mostly white with some specks and splashes of neon yellow, purple, and like kind of peachy colored. That is by Old Soul Fiber Co. and it's called Teacher's Pet. It is a sole twist and 80% superwash merino, 20% nylon, 400 yards in 100 gram. And then my second one, I'm using Teal Torch Knits. And this one is her Downy Sock, which is fingering weight 80-10-10, superwash merino, wool, cashmere, and nylon, 452 yards for 100 grams. And you've seen this before because I have used it in my Pure Joy shawl. And this is what I have so far. I just really wanted something light and airy and summery. And I think I got it. You've got this I-cord edging on the side, slip stitches on the side, and I'm just about to start one of the eyeball rows. And what's also nice is that Cozy Up Knits has a YouTube video to show you how to do the special stitch. So I will be watching that a few times before I attempt it, just to make sure I get it right. So I'm very excited about this one. So that's housed in my donut project bag that I made. Okay. Oh, I wanted to share with you a couple items that I am excited about casting on, but since I just showed you all these works in progress, maybe I should wait to finish some things before I cast on. One of them are the Perfect Pansy Socks. It's a pattern by Charlotte Stone of Stone Knits. It's a colorwork sock pattern. I feel like I haven't quite gotten my gauge and tension figured out for color work on socks because it's such a small in the round canvas compared to like a sweater. I feel like sweater color work knitting I've got down, but socks I need to work on. I feel like I get too tight, and so I think what I might try to do is either do it on double pointed needles or on 9-inch circulars, because then on 9-inch circulars it might feel more like knitting in the round on a sweater versus magic loop, which I feel like I might get too tight on that. We shall see. It'll be a fun project, but I'm really excited about this pattern. It comes in 3 sizes. It's much prettier in color than it is on a black and white printout. The other thing I want to share with you, I'm going to be making my husband a set of socks. I have the yarn picked out. I have not cast on yet. I am using the West Yorkshire Spinners. This one is the self-patterning yarn, and this is part of their bird collection. This one is called Bullfinch. And then this is Butterscotch, which I will be using for the contrast. So I want to do a contrast cuff and toe. I don't know if I'll do a contrast heel yet. We shall see. But yes, so that one's living in this bag. My bird project bag that I made last year. And last but not least, that I am excited to cast on, Lindsay of Lost and Fond is starting another knit along. This is the Bennett Sister Shawl knit along. It is really pretty. You can knit it with 1 color or 2 colors. You can add in mohair on the second half. I'm probably going to omit the mohair because I don't have any that will work. I have 1 color that I think would work, but my yardage won't be enough on that, so it'd be kind of weird to like run out of yardage on like just half of the shawl if I'm like almost done and not done. So anyway, probably not going to do it. So what I am going to use is this Fingering Weight Rose Apothecary colorway by Earl Grey Fiber. I am so excited about this color. It is so pretty. So it's got like pinkish mauvish colors with speckles that are in like a mossy olive green and yellow maybe. We'll see how it looks caked up, but this will be so pretty. So excited about that. That has been assigned to a project bag. So I think that's all the knitting I have to share with you. Along the lines with the Beatrix Potter make-along, we had checked out this book from our library. It is the Beatrix Potter Complete Tales. It is all of her stories, and the kids and I have been really excited to read through at least one each day. The illustrations are simply beautiful and inspiring, and so that's what we're reading right now. So something I did want to share with you are some things I've been cooking up lately. We've been making black bean sweet potato chili in the slow cooker. I don't have a specific recipe for that. I feel like you can just throw whatever in that you want. Something I am excited about making from the Smitten Kitchen cookbook are these whole lemon bars. She uses the entire lemon and she puts it in the food processor for the lemon part, but I am excited to make those. If that's not the picture. I mean, who doesn't love lemon bars? I love lemon bars. So that's something that I am looking forward to making. I made Rice Krispie treats recently. My husband had volunteered in my daughter's classroom for a party last month? 2 months ago? I don't know, time is passing by in a really weird way. But he had bought a bunch of mini marshmallow bags and he had bought too many, and instead of returning them, I am making them into Rice Krispie treats, because who doesn't like Rice Krispie treats? And we put sprinkles on top because who doesn't like sprinkles? Another item that we made recently was some bread. Now this takes me back about maybe 5-6 years when I took one of my daughters to a Waldorf class, and we would always make bread in the beginning of class. And you wouldn't think necessarily that making bread with a bunch of toddlers who are like smashing it, mashing it, making it onto all different shapes and sizes and different thicknesses, and then you bake it and it comes out, and then everybody passes the basket of bread around and enjoys it with butter and honey, and it tastes delicious. I feel like bread baking can be such a science, and certainly different types of bread can be a science, and that you worry about, or I do, worry about failing and then spending all that time and then not have bread that you can eat. I feel like this bread recipe is so simple and more relaxing because you can't mess it up. Well, I suppose you can mess it up. I just feel like it's less fussy, maybe. I will link to that recipe down below as well. We made it recently, and I did substitute in, I think, a little bit of whole wheat flour for the all-purpose flour, just based on what I had. And I did use honey in it instead of, well, I don't know if it's instead of what, but I used honey. Oh, I guess it's honey instead of like granulated sugar. And then I did use butter instead of oil. And it was really tasty, and the kids loved it, and we enjoyed it with honey butter, and it was delicious. So that's something I recommend doing as well. And I feel like just baking yeast breads can be really relaxing as well. The smell, the dough rising, working it with your hands, and then having something to eat. It's something that we very much enjoy. So I think, I feel like that is all that I have to share with you. I feel like there was a lot of stuff, and I talked a lot, and I hope things are going well with you. I hope that if you're healthy, that you stay healthy, that if you are sick, that you get well soon. This will pass, and we need to work together and take care of each other as a community. And it may be your local community, it may be your global community, it may be people like right around you, or people you don't even know. So with that, cheers to being creative, and take care of yourself, and I'll talk to you again soon. Bye-bye.